Ever feel like you're sitting on a gold mine of knowledge, but not sure how to, well, mine it?
Uh-huh.
Today, we're diving into something kind of fascinating. How to transform your everyday business processes, like those hidden gems, into valuable intellectual property.
Yeah, those hidden gems.
We've got a stack of intriguing documents from a company called Zway. They've laid out a pretty compelling strategy.
Buckle up. It's interesting, isn't it? So many businesses I find are just laser focused on making their operations run smoothly, like a well-oiled machine.
Right.
But they often miss this huge GE opportunity to leverage those very systems
Total.
as a marketable asset.
It's about recognizing the inherent value there.
Yes, the intellectual property value within those streamlined processes.
Zway calls this framework to IP. Catchy, right?
It is.
Essentially saying you don't need to reinvent the wheel to create something valuable. You've likely already got systems in place.
You've already got it.
Standard operating procedures, or
Yeah.
SOPs as they're often called.
Exactly.
Zway argues these can be the foundation for something much bigger.
What I find particularly intriguing is Zway's own background. They come from IT automation.
Okay.
They've transitioned from simply making technology work to recognizing and capitalizing on the IP, the intellectual property within those solutions.
Wow.
It's a fascinating evolution that speaks to a broader shift, I think, in how we view the value of process-driven knowledge.
It's like they discovered a whole new revenue stream by packaging their expertise, right?
Exactly.
And that's what they help other companies do. They've even got this 12-step process outlined in their Amplifies charging model. Do you have had a chance to dig into that at all?
I have, and it's quite clever how they've structured it, actually. That step kind of builds on the last, guiding you through the process of identifying, refining, packaging, and ultimately monetizing your unique methodologies. It's impressive.
Okay, so walk us through it. What are some of the key steps in this Amplifies model?
Well, it starts with the foundation, of course, defining your core expertise, and then, this is key, crystallizing that into a replicable framework.
Gotcha.
This is where you're taking those often overlooked SOPs, those standard operating procedures, and transforming them into a structured, teachable system.
So it's not just about having a process. It's about packaging it in a way that others can understand and implement.
Exactly. And once you have that framework, Zway emphasizes the importance of legally protecting it,
Okay.
particularly through trademarking.
Trademarking.
Yes. Now, this is where it gets interesting because many people don't realize that you can actually trademark a process,
Hmm.
not just a logo or a product name.
That's huge because it means you can literally own a piece of the market
Right.
by trademarking your unique methodology.
Precisely. It establishes ownership, adds a layer of perceived value, and sends a clear signal to potential infringers that this intellectual property is protected.
And what I love is that they don't stop there. They take it a step further by emphasizing the importance of creating visual assets, workshops, even writing a book.
Yeah.
They're really pushing for a multifaceted approach to amplifying that core framework.
And that's where their Amplifies acronym comes in, right? It's
Yeah.
not just a catchy name. It highlights the cascading effect they're aiming for. Each element, the workshops, the visuals, the content marketing, it all amplifies the reach and impact of your core framework.
Okay, that makes sense. But I'm curious, how does this actually play out in the real world? Do they have any examples of companies that have successfully used this framework to IP approach?
They do. They've included a couple of compelling case studies in their materials. One that comes to mind is this niche finance brokerage firm in Milton Keynes.
Okay.
They were looking for ways to scale their business, and they ended up working with Z to develop a framework based on their client interaction process.
Okay, so what did that look like? Did they create some fancy software or something?
Not exactly. This is what I find so fascinating about Zway's approach. They didn't reinvent the wheel. They helped the firm package their existing expertise into a systemized framework, which they branded as the BL Drive Plan.
The BL Drive Plan. I like it. It's catchy and relevant to their business,
Yeah.
but did it actually work?
According to the case study, the firm is projecting a doubling of their revenue over the next 2 years.
Wow.
They attribute this growth directly to the streamlined processes and enhanced client experience facilitated by the BL Drive Plan framework. They even highlight an impressive 2,000% return on their investment with Zway in year one alone.
Wow, that's a pretty compelling testimonial.
Huh.
Okay, so we've got a finance company. What other industries have they had success with?
Another interesting case study highlights a landscaping company
Okay.
facing a succession planning challenge. The owners were preparing for retirement, but much of their business relied on their personal expertise, particularly their approach to the complex tendering process. The owners were preparing for retirement, but a lot of their business, you see, relied on their personal expertise,
Yeah.
particularly their approach to that complex tendering process.
I see. So the business was valuable, but the lack of formalized systems made it difficult to transition to new ownership.
Exactly. So Zway helped them to develop this framework called Turnleaf, which streamlined their tendering process
Okay.
into a replicable, scalable system.
Turnleaf.
Yeah.
I like it.
Interestingly, part of this involved leveraging AI
Oh, well,
for tender responses,
okay.
which not only increased their capacity to handle more projects, but also led to more accurate cost estimations and improved profit margins.
It's incredible how a structured framework can impact a business on so many levels, from operational efficiency to profitability and even its overall valuation.
Absolutely. And in this case, the Turnleaf framework became a key asset during the company's acquisition. It provided potential buyers with the confidence that the business could continue to thrive even without the original owners at the helm.
That's a powerful example of how turning a process into an asset can literally make or break a business deal.
Right.
Speaking of turning processes into assets, I understand Zway's approach isn't just for large companies, is that right?
You're right. One of the documents highlights how individuals can leverage this framework approach for personal branding.
Okay.
They used the example of Kyle Ballmer, an AI expert who packaged his knowledge into a sought-after framework called Risen.
Now that's an example I've definitely heard of. Ballmer's framework focuses on crafting effective AI prompts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's blown up online. He's everywhere.
Exactly. He turned his expertise into a valuable commodity by formalizing it into a teachable, replicable system.
Wow.
It just goes to show that this concept can be applied at any scale, from solopreneurs to multinational corporations.
This is all incredibly fascinating. But
Yeah.
before we move on, I want to unpack this trademarking concept a bit further. What are some of the practicalities of actually trademarking a process?
Sure.
So let's say I'm ready to trademark my brilliant business process. Where do I even begin?
Well, it's not quite as simple as slapping a trademark symbol on something and calling it a day.
I figured as much.
You first need to identify the specific element you want to protect.
Okay.
Remember, a trademark protects a brand or identifier.
Right.
So you need to figure out what makes your process unique and how you're branding that.
So in the case of that financial firm, it wasn't just trademarking client interaction. It was the specific name and system they built around it, the BL Drive Plan.
Exactly. They essentially branded their methodology, making it distinct in the marketplace.
Okay, so once you've identified that unique element, what's next?
You'll want to do a thorough search
Mm-hmm.
to ensure no one else is already using a similar trademark for similar services.
Makes sense?
This is crucial because trademark law is all about avoiding consumer confusion. You don't want to invest time and money building a brand around a name or logo that infringes on someone else's intellectual property.
Right.
Right.
So no cutting corners on the due diligence.
Exactly. Once you've confirmed the coast is clear, you'll need to file a trademark application with the appropriate governing body in your country or region.
And I'm guessing that's where a good intellectual property lawyer comes in handy.
Absolutely. They can guide you through the intricacies of the application process, ensure you're filing under the correct categories, and help you address any objections that might arise. Trademarking can get quite complex, especially when you're dealing with a less traditional asset like a business process.
Yeah, it sounds like a worthwhile investment to have an expert in your corner, especially if you're serious about protecting your intellectual property.
Absolutely. Now, while trademarking is a critical step, it's also important to remember that it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
Zway's Amplifies model highlights the importance of a more holistic approach to monetizing your framework.
Right? It's not enough to just own the rights to it.
Yeah.
You need to make it resonate with your target audience.
Right. And that's where those other elements come in the workshops, the content creation, maybe even writing that book. It's about positioning yourself as an authority and showcasing the value of your framework to the world.
Exactly. And this is where I think Zoe's background in IT automation shines through in their approach.
Okay.
They understand the power of building systems that not only streamline processes, but also create a seamless and engaging experience for the end user.
So it's not just about having a great process. It's about presenting it in a way that's digestible, engaging, and even a bit exciting.
Precisely, think about those cooking shows where they break down a complex recipe into
Ah.
easy-to-follow steps, and suddenly you feel empowered to try it yourself.
Yeah.
That's the kind of approach that can transform a potentially dry or technical framework into something that resonates with a wider audience.
So it's about the storytelling, the visuals, the user experience. It's about making that intellectual property come alive. Exactly. And when you can do that effectively, you create a powerful combination. You have a protected asset, a compelling story, and a clear path to monetization.
It's like turning your expertise into a product that people are eager to buy into.
Precisely. And one of the most effective ways to do that is by showcasing real-world results.
Okay.
This is another area where Zway excels. They understand that testimonials and case studies are powerful tools for building credibility and trust.
They did highlight those case studies quite prominently in their materials.
Yeah.
It was interesting to see the tangible impact their framework to IP approach had on those businesses, especially the landscaping company facing the succession challenge. The creation of that turn-leaf framework seemed to be a game changer for their entire business trajectory.
It's a compelling example of how a seemingly intangible asset like a systemized process can have very real and measurable implications for a company's growth valuation and even its long-term legacy.
Speaking of legacy, I'm curious from your perspective, what's the long-term vision here? I mean, is the goal to eventually sell your framework as a standalone product, or is it more about integrating it into your existing business model?
That's a great question, and I think the answer varies depending on your specific goals and ambitions. Some people might aspire to create the next Risen, a wildly successful framework that becomes synonymous with a particular skill or methodology.
Like the Marie Kondo of organizing or the Tony Robbins of personal development?
Exactly. But for others, it might be about refining and monetizing a core aspect of their existing business. They might use their framework to attract higher paying clients, command premium pricing for their services, or even license their methodology to other businesses.
So there's no one-size-fits-all approach. It's about finding the strategy that aligns with your overall business objectives and personal aspirations.
Precisely the beauty of this framework to IP concept is that it's incredibly versatile. It can be tailored to fit a wide range of industries, business models, and personal brands.
It's about recognizing the value of what you already know and do well, and then packaging that expertise in a way that resonates with your target market.
And that, in essence, is the essence of intellectual property. It's about leveraging knowledge, creativity, and innovation to create something valuable and unique that can benefit both you and the wider world.
It's fascinating how something as seemingly mundane as a business process can hold so much potential. But as we've been discussing unlocking, that potential takes more than just good intentions. It requires a strategic approach, a willingness to embrace the nuances of intellectual property, and a healthy dose of entrepreneurial spirit.
Absolutely. And it also requires a willingness to navigate the inevitable challenges that come with any entrepreneurial endeavor. Because let's be real, turning a process into IP gold is rarely a linear or effortless journey.
That's a good point. We've covered a lot of exciting possibilities, but what about the potential pitfalls? What are some of the common mistakes people make when trying to turn their processes into IP, and how can they avoid those missteps?
One mistake I see people make pretty often is trying to be everything to everyone.
Okay.
They dilute their core message, you see, by trying to make their framework too broad.
So instead of focusing on their unique brilliance,
Yeah,
they end up with something generic and forgettable.
exactly. It's like trying to sell a Swiss Army knife as like the ultimate kitchen tool.
Right.
It might do a lot of things okay, but it won't excel at anything.
Yeah.
It's far more effective to really focus on a specific niche,
Right.
a specific problem that you solve exceptionally well,
Gotcha.
and own that space.
Depth over breadth
Yes.
when it comes to crafting a compelling framework.
Exactly.
What about the execution side of things? Any common pitfalls once people get into actually sharing their frameworks with the world?
Consistency is often a challenge.
Okay.
They might start strong, with a burst of enthusiasm,
Yeah.
creating content and promoting their framework,
Right.
but then the life gets in the way,
Yeah.
and the momentum fizzles out.
It's the classic entrepreneurial roller coaster.
Indeed, building a brand, establishing yourself as an authority, it takes sustained effort.
Yep, it does.
You need to consistently show up, deliver value, and engage with your audience over time.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And that ties into another common mistake.
Okay.
Underestimating the importance of building relationships.
Okay.
They might create an incredible framework, but then struggle to connect with potential clients or customers.
They've got the what, but not the who.
Precisely. Networking, collaborating, and genuinely engaging with others in your industry is essential.
Yeah.
Share your knowledge freely, offer value upfront,
Right.
become a sought-after resource in your field.
Yeah.
Building those relationships can make all the difference in getting your framework in front of the right people.
So it's not just what you know, it's who you know.
Mm-hmm.
Or perhaps more importantly, who knows you.
Exactly.
Now, before we wrap up, any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are eager to embark on this framework to IP journey?
Be bold, be authentic, and most importantly, be patient. It takes time to build something truly valuable. Don't get discouraged if you don't see overnight success. Focus on refining your process, sharing your knowledge, and building meaningful connections.
Right.
The rewards will come.
Love that. Well, there you have it. We've explored the ins and outs of turning your everyday processes into intellectual property gold. We've covered the strategies, the potential pitfalls, and the essential ingredients for success.
It's been a fascinating deep dive, and I hope our listeners feel empowered to take action, to look at their own expertise through a fresh lens, and explore the exciting possibilities of framework to IP.
Absolutely. Remember, everyone has unique knowledge and processes that have the potential to be transformed into valuable assets.
That's right.
So what are you waiting for? It's time to unearth your brilliance. Package it up and share it with the world. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time.